Good afternoon, folks. Professor can't leave. For my sociology media project, I decided to talk about racism and gender discrimination. And this can be a very difficult topic to talk about, but it's an ongoing issue in America and worldwide, sadly. Over the years, these issues have actually been put on the spotlight with recent events such as police brutality or women discrimination in jobs or programs. In my project, I will be talking about discrimination, if it's a cultural thing, are we born with it, or is someone taught to be prejudiced? And it's very controversial, especially in nowadays. But in my project, I'll also talk about stereotypes in society and obviously talk about what is racism and sexism. And I'll be focusing on the spotlight of white privilege or male privilege, and if it's a real thing or yeah. All right, so let's move on to the first slide. All right, to start off, what is gender and racial discrimination? Racial discrimination is any discrimination against any individual on the basis of their skin color or racial or ethnic origin. Individuals can discriminate by refusing to do business with or socialize with or share resources with a person of a particular group. And I will examine this and analyze it with the term white privilege and discrimination on Latinos, Asians, or blacks. And gender discrimination falls under the same basis in which one is discriminated based on their gender. This can also be termed as sexism, which is the most popular term rather than gender discrimination. It's just sexism and it mainly affects girls, women, or any other gender besides men. And that's why I'll be talking about and analyze the term male privilege and talk about the lack of diversity in jobs, or give more examples in my future presentation. All right, then to the second slide. What is white privilege? This is the inherent advantages possessed by a white person on the basis of their race in a society characterized by racial inequality and injustice. Some examples of this is the lack of diversity in certain jobs by racial means in which one field the majority is white, and the lack of promotion of racial diversity, which can be followed by the colorblind ideology, in which the ideology maintains a systemic white privilege and that consequently justifies contemporary racial inequality, pretty much the status quo. One component of the colorblind ideology is that all people have equal opportunity to succeed. Therefore, race should not be a factor in affecting or determining someone's life chances. So, one example of this can be in big corporations. You could hardly see diversity in jobs that are mostly white, male dominated. This is because, you don't see promotions. You don't really see one advocating for diversity, which is a saddening thing because I believe everyone should have an equal opportunity to succeed. But not everyone has an equal resource to succeed. One may live in a more richer area while the other lives in a more impoverished area. All right, then to the fourth slide. All right, what is male privilege? To be advantaged by simply being male. That's pretty much what it states. Special privileges and status are granted to male in patriarchal societies. These are societies defined by a male supremacy in which males hold primary power and predominant in roles of political leadership, moral authority, social privilege, and control of property. Some examples of this is the lack of diversity in jobs, where one example could be in the STEM major, which male are still dominant in any STEM position. Higher funding in sports, which this came in spotlight in the NCAA women's program, which they really did not have any sort of funding. They really did not have the same resources as the men NCAA team. The males had bigger and better working out machines at a whole gym, while the female program only had a rack of dumbbells, which is really saddening to see. And we can also see this in society where there's more males positioned in power well, here in America, you do see some females in power, but in much more higher, you don't really see women in positions of power. All right, then this is the most important, probably the most important slide. Is one born racist or sexist? Is racism in our genes, or are we taught to be racist by the environment we're surrounded by? John Locke stated the term tabula rasa, which is the theory that individuals are born without built-in mental content, and therefore all knowledge comes from experience or perception. And I believe that, yeah, we are all influenced by what we see, by what we're told, by how we grow up. That comes to, we all come from different backgrounds and we all perceive things differently, but that's normal unless one is inculcated with prejudice ideas such as racial superiority above others. And I always say one takes in by one is given. Meaning if one is raised to be in a malignant manner, then most likely will be a bad person. On the contrary, one who is raised with manners, one is raised with respect, one is to be respectful, he or she will most likely be a good person. So I think it's a fundamental thing to teach our younger selves, our younger generations, to be respectful, to accept change, to be open, to be respectful above all. No matter what, you must be respectful to the person to your right, to your left, in front of you, and behind you. One should not be raised to be evil or have this prejudice ideas where one is greater than the other, But yeah. Right then to the 6th slide, or the 7th slide, I mean. As I said, are we born racist, or are we raised and influenced by the things we are surrounded by? And obviously, you hear bad things, you grew up around bad things, bad ideas that influence your cognition, And that's what a stereotype is. A stereotype is a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea on a particular type of person, on a thing, And some examples of these can be women can do as a good job as men. Though this is a stereotype, it's not true. Women can do as good as a job and not better than a man. Some of these ideas can be women are more organized, they're more determined, I would say. Another one is all Asians are good at math. All Asians like to eat rice and drive slow. And though I would like that everyone's good at math, and that's not simply true. Not everyone's good at something, So I would say all stereotypes are myth, and they're not true. All right, into the examples. Police brutality. In recent events, we've seen police brutality be put on the spotlight with the death of George Floyd and many more being exposed to the public. This can be racist as it compares incidents that has been a wide amount of police brutality towards blacks and Latinos compared to white. That's really, so yeah. Alright, systemic racism. This can be the lack of funding in certain areas, mostly in Latino and black communities, such as poverty seen in Compton or schools in those areas. And the lack of sanitation in these streets. Compared to other areas, there's a better schools or better looking streets, more sanitation, better roads, and you can really see the difference between areas between Compton, West Hollywood. Yeah. Alright, then to sexism, systemic sexism. You can really see this in jobs, alright? When you can see this in STEM major, the engineering field, or simply in people in a position of power. And you can see this in Latin America. In Latin America, the Asian, like the Asian country, females are not really put in position to succeed. You can see this in Mexico. There's a wide corruption where men hold positions, and in the Asian race, you can really see males dominate the field in which they have the last say, and I don't think that's right. I feel like women and males should have the same position. And lack of equality, as I stated, the NCAA event, males had better funding, better resources, they had better everything. And while female were more limited, they didn't have the best equipment, they didn't have the best meals, they didn't have the best workout machines. And that's really saddening, because over the years I feel like we should be changing this, and we need change. We need better and more influence in our younger generations, in which we teach them to be equal, to be respectful, to be open-minded. But yes, that is my presentation on my media social project, which is gender and racial discrimination.